Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching 10th and final part of What If Naruto Becomes Curse of Hatred. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
The room's white walls, similar roof, and strong antiseptic smell had become very familiar to him. He had slowly become used to it, and the only thing he knew about the outside world was what he saw through his window. According to the person, it was either bad or good that a beautiful woman with blue hair had put herself in the way of the sun, blocking the rays that almost blinded him every morning. He was already deeply angry with this room, which was his home. He had been here for 2 weeks, healing from the terrible fight he had with his enemy. For 2 weeks, he was treated like a fragile china doll, which made him very angry because he just wanted it to end. If his best friend Conan hadn't told him not to, he probably would have already thrown himself out the window. As he lay there and watched, she read poetry to herself and muttered the words. This was something she did all the time. His mind had been on that smug grin of hers for a while now, which would turn into a soft smile whenever she looked at him. Other than the fact that he had said something in his sleep, he had no idea what it was. The woman was now acting like a crazy schoolgirl. She was so damn happy with herself that she was almost trying to make him smile. Up until he remembered what he had said. He was going to fight Obito Uchiha, who put him in this hospital room and hurt him so badly that the wounds would never fully heal. Whenever he closed his eyes, his mask would flash in his mind and disappear in the blink of an eye. His blue eyes would also travel to Conan's form every time he heard birds singing outside the window. Everything would be over in a week, so he had to leave this room and get better. He had a feeling that if he didn't show up, Obito would quickly find him, kill Conan, and then kill himself right here in this bed. Naruto looked away from Conan and at the wall to his left, asking, "What are you reading?" His female friend could only smile a little at his concern. It wasn't clear if he was looking at the wall out of mild embarrassment or to hide his interest. A poem about love and revenge. A woman whose heart belongs to someone else is snatched away by a jealous ninja who rapes and beats her. Her lover, a fisherman, kills the shinobi in his sleep, and the woman never sees him again, which makes her kill herself, Conan said with a happy tune in her voice and sparkling amber eyes. When Naruto asked his friend, "You read that?" She kept smiling with pride, happy that she had finally gotten a real answer from the man. "You made that up." The man's grin told him everything he needed to know. She had lied to him and made him a fool, a funny kind of fool. A hospital patient said in a rude voice, "Glad to know that my pain brings you all the pleasure in the world." "Oh no, there are many things that make me smile," Conan said as she turned a page in her book. Her counterpart huffed at this, but he let the blue-haired girl have this small victory. Her smile never went away as the blonde closed his one visible eye and fell asleep, a spell from the coming night. As she watched him sleep, the pain in her heart grew, scratching at the walls from the inside. He was going to attack Obito right away. Obito was the one who put him in this bed and was still torturing him. One of the man's eyes didn't work very well, and only one arm and one leg did. His sword was also broken. It was her wish that she could stop him from going down this path and force him to give up, but she knew that no matter what she said, he would dispute it. Obito would always come for him to kill him, and it hurt her all the way through to see him tossing and turning in his bed with beads of sweat running down his forehead. She wished for him. She felt like she cared about him more than she knew. It was only 3 simple words she had to say, but they were enough to move mountains. While she watched him give in to his nightmares, all she could do was comfort him and curse herself as the sky turned black. Going back. He stood there as still and tall as a statue. The fine sand was on his feet and under his nails. His hair was long and wild, and it was dirty, grimy, and full of blood. There were spots of the red liquid on his right cheek. His clothes were sagging off of him, and he held a kunai with one hand and a bloody fist with the other. His dark blue eyes glared at the man with the bandages who was standing on a pedestal next to him and at the children who were standing on either side of him. He brought them all here, whether they were slaves, orphans, or people he had kidnapped. It didn't matter to Danzo Shimura as long as they could fight and kill. After that, he could use and discard them as he pleased. He only got the Kyuubi Jinchuriki from Hiruzen by sheer luck, snatching it from the Hokage's hands. Now he could let out his wild anger and kill anyone who dared to cross him. In his eyes, it was like a diamond in the rough. He had the perfect weapon with him, and he was going to use it to kill anyone who tried to hurt his village. He told himself, all for the village. It didn't matter how bad his actions were or how horrible the ways he used them were. If it was for the good of Konoha, then nothing would stop him from protecting what was important to him. Now he was raising the perfect army, the perfect warriors, each one ready to attack his enemies first. He had to get rid of the weak ones. Starting this activity, when a whistle went off, the kids would turn on the kids next to them, in front of them, or even behind them. They would then beat each other up in this small ring until only one kid was left standing. Danzo thought that the people who died didn't deserve to live because they couldn't help protect the village as a whole. Every time the whistle went off, they stopped what they were doing and faced the old shinobi. Then they locked them in their small rooms and tortured their bodies and minds until they broke. People who shook like leaves in the wind and shook their heads were easy to spot. As they breathed quickly, their eyes flickered back and forth, making noises that were almost like trumpets. When the whistle went off again, Naruto hit his opponents hard with his kunai. Bones cracked and skulls were broken with each blow. He did what he did on purpose. Fighting to stay alive wasn't enough for him. He seemed to enjoy the violence, as if he belonged here, killing weak people to get stronger. As he flew over the group, he smashed his kunai into organs and skulls, painting his body with blood like it was a canvas. A small smirk crossed Danzo's face as he watched the blonde easily deal with the other kids. He was such a blessing, but he was also so cruel and wild. He wasn't a child. He was an animal, a killing machine, the perfect tool for making a masterpiece. How far would this kid go? He was curious. How far would he go to get a place, in Root or Konoha? However, Danzo not only knew, he was expecting this to happen. He knew the boy would do anything to find a place to call home and be accepted. He was desperate, and when someone is desperate, they are easy to control. That night, Shinobi no Yami found his left hand, the knife, raven wings, and wolf teeth in the dark. The ideal tool. The whistle went off again, and the kids' ears rang with it. They stopped what they were doing and pulled their weapons out of dead bodies. When the Master of Root stood at his full height, his one eye could be seen looking over all the bloody faces. He did not say anything or move. He just turned around and left the room, leaving the children to be beaten badly by Root members. This was part of the tests to see how much pain they can take without hurting anyone else. For Naruto, the fists broke his bones and cracked his skull. He could feel his ribs breaking and cracking as his body screamed in pain, but he didn't scream because he thought it would be rude, and besides, the pain he was feeling was nothing compared to the pain and loneliness he felt in his younger years. It wasn't anything. Soon, he was thrown into a cell. His body was badly hurt. His lip was split, and there were big scratches and tears all over him. He didn't wince or cry like the other candidates. Instead, he held something close to his chest that he had taken from the arena as a souvenir. It was a small black rock that wasn't much bigger than his hand. During the beating, he held onto it and prayed that they wouldn't take it away. Thank goodness they hadn't seen it. He only got up when the lights went out and the guards moved away. His wounds were still bleeding, and small red drops were dripping from his lip. The other kids got up from their seats and watched him with interest, like monkeys in a zoo. He stood against the glass. He wiped the blood off his lip without flinching from the sharp pain. Then he hit the rock against the glass over and over again until the sound of cracking and breaking could be heard in the cold, dark room. After a while, the rough, hard rock was rubbing the skin off the tips of his fingers, but he didn't care. He was only focused on his goal, breaking the glass. Soon, tiny cracks started to appear in the glass, and as he screamed harder against the almost invisible barrier, so did the volume of his screams. He let out one last scream, and the glass broke into sharp, fragmented pieces that tore and shredded his hand. All the other kids were amazed by what they saw. The glass was strong enough to stay together against kunai and other common weapons, but he broke it with just his willpower and strength. When he stepped onto the cutting floor, they gasped for air. The shards went deep into the palms of his feet, and blood started to leak out of his toes. He didn't care, so he walked toward another cage, each step making the glass crack under his feet. The same thing happened when he stood in front of another cage and hit the rock against the glass. After a while, the glass broke, letting the child on the other side go free again. But his happiness didn't last long because Naruto didn't move. He stared at him through his yellow hair, his eyes cold and dead like a fish. The boy could feel the Uzumaki's aura as he instinctively backed up against the steel wall of his cage. This was the last thing he did before the last Uzumaki hit him in the head with the rock that had freed him, leaving him almost drenched in red liquid. When the other kids saw this, they either screamed in fear or battered their bloody fists against the cages to try to get out. The next morning, the ritual tapping of a cane could be heard throughout Route. Danzo waded through his base on his way to one of the buildings where his new recruits lived. When he opened the door, he wasn't ready for what was on the other side. He didn't flinch, gasp, or throw up when he saw what he saw. It would have made many other shinobi sick to their stomachs just to look at it. The recruits' bodies were spread out and broken all over the large room. Their blood was all over the floor, and their bones and organs were visible. The Route leader didn't say or even whisper as he walked over the dead bodies like they were dirt, getting closer to the killer, Naruto. The old shinobi was kneeling with his head down and heavy breathing, looking at the bloody rock next to him but didn't say anything. He only said one word, but it summed up how proud he was of himself. Excellent. Backwards look. He opened his eyes and looked over to where Konan should have been lying. Instead, she was nowhere to be found. In her place was a nurse who was checking his vital signs, adjusting his IV, and doing other medical tasks. As she leaned over him, the soft light made the cleavage of her breasts stand out. She didn't pay attention because she thought he was sleeping and dreaming little dreams. She came in and out of the room quickly, closing the door behind her as she went. Naruto didn't care. For a moment he was sad and didn't want to say anything or think about anything. He had been either thinking about his time en route or remembering Konan by his side for a long time. He knew which one he liked better, but she wasn't there and he was here. He turned his head to the side and saw that the Tonbogiri pieces were gone. They might have been taken by the blue net. He didn't think about it for too long. Instead, he closed his eyes again, hoping that instead of seeing pain, he would see dreams of her. Naruto was being watched over by Zetsu while Konan was somewhere else. She had left the hospital without him. The female member of the Akatsuki decided to fix something that needed fixing, which is why she went to see Iwagakure, a hated enemy of Konoha. If there was one thing that Iwa was proud of, it was that their arms and weapons were some of the best in the world, thanks in part to the rich mines that were deep in the mountains. The village was made of stone and rock, while Aim was a city made of metal. As she walked toward one of the many armories and forges that were spread out across the city, she carried the hilt and pommel of the Tonbogiri in a small pack. She went up to the best one, the one who made the best weapons out of the strongest steel and whose name was known all over the world. She stood in front of the door and opened it as the bell rang. As she walked in, she looked around and saw all the blades, knives, and other tools hanging on the walls and racks. "Hello?" she asked while holding the pieces close to her body. Suddenly, a thin man rushed around the corner, his hair frizzy from smoking and donning sunglasses to protect his eyes from the soot and smoke. "Ah, a customer," yelled the blacksmith as he took off his sunglasses and showed Konan's gray, tinged brown eyes. He quickly ran up to her and looked at every part of her body. "Huh," he said, pushing himself away, "well. Developed, strong, amazing hips, perfect for children, beautiful eyes, interesting hair color, strong muscles for any task, ample breasts for any hypothetical child, you are the pinnacle of the opposite gender." Konan blushed wildly to herself, feeling like she was an exotic work of art on display. The mere mention of children was enough to knock her out. "How can I help?" he asked. Konan woke up when she focused on the task at hand. As she tried to calm down after the inspection, she said, "I need this sword fixed." Suddenly, her bag was taken from her while the blacksmith worked on the metals. Could this be? No, it couldn't be. Is this the Tonbogiri? No. Tsurugi? Asked the smith, who was as excited as a schoolgirl and hunched over with tears in his eyes. Konan could only nervously nod as the man started to cry. The smith said, "I'm holding history itself. A legend still in the making. I promise to never wash these hands again." As he curled up into a fetal position and held the shards to his chest. He was only trying to remember one small thing. He yelled, "Oh my God, it's broken!" and threw the pieces all over the room. "That's why I'm here. Can you fix it?" Konan asked as she moved closer to the door after hearing this crazy person scream to himself. She gave him a strange look as he got up from the ground and wiped his clothes off. The faker picked up the bag and put it on his counter. "Yes, I can fix it. I can do more if you want," he said. He shook the bag and let the pieces fall onto the wood, where he looked at the metal. Conan, on the other hand, moved forward slowly, confused by the maker's change of heart. I felt like I was going to jump when he said, "Oh dear." The blacksmith let out a heavy sigh and asked, "What? Can't you fix it?" In all the years I've been making weapons, I've never been able to fix a sword to how it was. It's just not possible. It would make the blade as weak and fragile as glass, the smith said, making Conan look sad. But I can make it stronger than it ever was with the things I have in my store. I might even be able to make two, the smith said as the brunette turned her head to look at him. This blade was made almost 500 years ago. The design is archaic and out of date. It would have been unbeatable back then, but now it's so weak it's no wonder it broke. But with today's technology, my skill, and special materials, I can make it stronger than it ever was. Let's get to work. Conan could only smile, and it was an awkward forced smile that summed up the whole conversation. The nurse asked Naruto, "How do you feel?" as he watched her change Naruto's IV bag. The kind doctor stood next to her and smiled as he watched. "Do not worry, my friend, this hospital owes allegiance to no village, we would even place two hated enemies beside each other if we wanted to. You are safe here, your wife has gone to do business elsewhere, she told me she would be back at latest, the end of the week." Naruto raised his eyebrows at this, wife? It didn't matter in the end if he wasn't married or if they just thought that because of how close Conan was to him. It could have been a lie she told them to stay by his side. "It's been a few days since we took those blade fragments out of your leg. You should be able to walk again. Don't worry, we're here to help if you need it," he said, placing himself on Naruto's right side while the nurse stayed on his left. The two carefully pulled the young man into a sitting position, with the blonde grunting as they did so because it hurt. "They say you have to stand before you can walk, so let's get going." The nurse and doctor moved away from Naruto as he carefully and painfully moved his legs over the side of the bed. He shivered as he shakily pushed himself off the bed, his feet touching the cold floor. He was able to walk again after he got his balance back. He would have taken a step forward if he hadn't fallen back onto the bed. "Great, we're making progress. Do more of these exercises and you'll be running all over the place again." As he looked at the stump of his right arm, his heart started to beat faster again. He laid down to calm down before things got worse. The doctor told Naruto to lie down and covered his lower body with a blanket. "Now, we're just going to give you a drug that will put you to sleep and make your body stronger. Don't worry, it's very routine." The drug was quickly given through the IV drip by both the nurse and himself. "It won't happen right away, but you won't feel anything," the doctor said as the nurse quickly left the room. Naruto saw a pool of blood leaking through the crack in the open door as soon as she left. It made his heart race, but the doctor didn't pay attention because he was looking at some charts. He couldn't speak because the drug was starting to take effect, and he saw Roots Anbu walk through the door. The doctor quickly took note and cut the IV drip because he knew Naruto would need his strength. Sadly, this was the last thing he did because the Anbu cut the doctor's throat, causing him to choke on his own blood. The Anbu walked around the bed and said, "You're not easy to find, Naruto. Danzo Sama has been very keen on ending you before you become too much of a threat." Naruto could barely lift his arms to defend himself because the drug was temporarily numbing his body. He put his hand over the blonde's mouth and held a kunai to his throat, saying, "Don't be afraid. I'll make this quick." But the Konohanin's blood was the only one that was spilled. A wooden spike went through his chest and killed him instantly. Zetsu, Naruto whispered as the black and white man stood there and looked down at him before getting something from a cabinet nearby. "I know, I just wanted to have some fun, don't worry, I was out scouting the entire area, Root has found you, they'll be swarming the entire hospital soon, killing everyone and anyone. Your body is barely able to stand, nor can you use chakra, far too dangerous to use now, because of the drug. Drink this," Zetsu said, offering the blonde a drink he quickly ingested. The man's muscles got stronger, which is what was supposed to happen. He could now at least crawl across the ground. The Uzumaki crawled across the ground like a sick dog. Zetsu told him to go down the halls and find an exit while he looked around and tried to slow Root down as he merged into the ground. The Madara student then stumbled out of his hospital room. Luckily, no other Root soldiers had made it to the floor with him, and he quickly regained enough strength to shakily walk across the hall while leaning against the hard walls for support. The halls were almost completely dark, and outside there were fires going strong. Screams could be heard outside the windows, and the sound of metal scraping against metal could be heard in the ground. Naruto found a long row of windows. Based on his height, he must have been on one of the hospital's upper floors. From where he was standing, he could see more shinobi jumping off the ground and landing on the roof. He knew they were coming soon and that he would not be able to handle them in his current state. With sharp eyes, he could make out the blurry shapes of more shinobi coming around the corner. His ears perked up when he heard footsteps. They hadn't seen him yet, thank goodness, because it was dark outside, but he didn't want to wait, so he quickly hid in a closet that was full of cleaning supplies. The door to the small room had a few holes in it, so he could see what was outside. He narrowed his eyes as they walked by, watching and listening for something to happen around the corner. Since they still hadn't found him in the closet, it was clear that none of them were sensor types. He only left the small room and continued his hasty walk through the hospital when he was sure everything was okay. Every second, he could feel tiny bits of his strength coming back to him. He ducked into a room with several patients who were coughing, choking, and struggling to get out of their beds. He was glad that there were no more patients on the floor nearby. Naruto dove under one of the beds while clenching his teeth as pain hit him. He did this just in time because Root had broken into the room and was cutting the patients' throats. He saw the blood get on the sheets and fall to the floor. He didn't dare move because every second in this place had to be carefully planned because if they found him, it would be the end. He didn't even let out a sigh of relief when the shinobi carefully left the room after looking at all of their victims to see which one was him. They left, and he got up and started walking again. But he didn't know that one of the patients was still alive and holding on to his arm for dear life. The patient yelled, "Help me!" in a voice that was too loud for comfort. Soon, the sounds of footsteps could be heard again, and Naruto broke the patient's neck to silence him. He then ducked under his bed just as the same group of shinobi came running around the corner again. He got back up when they left and began slithering and crouching past doors and hallways. As he went deeper into the hospital, he saw that the halls were full of dead patients, doctors, and nurses. He forced himself not to feel sorry for them and kept going. When he finally got to the stairs, he could feel a group of Root following him. As he went down, he could also feel another group of them just 2 levels above him. He had to go beyond what he thought was possible and run down quickly, almost tripping a few times. He soon found a small group of survivors huddled together, wondering what was going on and desperately trying to find a way out that was safe. He only had a short time with them before Root rushed around the corner and killed them all. He walked through a room right as the killing started and slammed the door behind him with his foot as the screams continued. He barely had time to react before he was suddenly thrown to the ground and slammed against a wall. He let out a painful gasp and grunted as the cold metal of a kunai pierced his shoulder. As the weapon was taken away, he bled a little, and this time the Root agent tried to stab it into his neck. The shinobi grabbed his wrist as he desperately tried to fight him off with what little strength he had left. As they fought over the knife, they both lost their balance and fell to the ground with their arms and legs spread out all over the place. The Anbu dropped his kunai, and Naruto quickly picked it up before lunging at the shinobi and driving it into the nin's chest with some resistance. He took deep breaths as he put the kunai away and tucked it into the waistband of his pants. He didn't know when he might need it again. He stayed low as he crawled across the ground, like a hunter stalking their prey, so Root wouldn't find their friend with him. As he ran across the floor, he almost flew across it. He came across a hall full of dead bodies that Root had left there. He ran up to a gate that blocked anyone from trying to escape or keep them in. While holding the kunai in his hand, he opened the gate and went down another set of stairs. He then ducked into another hallway that led to the front gate of the hospital, which was a bit of a bad idea since Root was all around the building. But there are times when you need to be brave. He felt lucky that he didn't face much resistance, and it wasn't until he opened a door on the side of the main hall that led out of the hospital that he finally slowed down. There were too many Root for him to handle, and the one he fought earlier was an act of desperation rather than ease. He didn't have time to think about this for long because Zetsu jumped out of the ground and started fighting the Anbu with ease, almost like he was playing with them. This was Naruto's cue to quickly get around the whole group, making sure to stay in the shadows and avoid the bright flames. When Naruto saw a chance, he ran as fast as he could out of the great halls that had been destroyed by paper bombs during the first attack. He walked into the darkness of the night and saw fires burning off the bodies of the dead. Someone put a paper bomb around the handle of a kunai and stabbed the ground right in front of him. He didn't get very far. Before he could do anything, the paper exploded in a big cloud of burning pieces and sparks, throwing him across the ground and making him skid along the concrete floor. Nothing but the ringing in his ears could be heard. It was like a choir of mice were singing their greatest work right into his ears. There were shinobi gathering around him, and he could see that they were ready to finish him off. They stopped, though, as a figure in purple quickly hit them in the head with a huge gunbai and then vanished in a swirl. It all happened so quickly that Naruto couldn't even remember what happened, and he didn't wait to find out what happened next. When he looked to his left and saw carriages with strong, fed horses, he stumbled over them as he tried to get his bearings again. He slipped into the driver's seat and grabbed the reins with the hand he still had. He whipped the horses into action and rode off, vowing to never go back to that hospital. Because it was so dark outside, he could barely see the road in front of him. The only light coming from the hospital's fire made the ride short, quick, and crazy. He was very wrong, because in that very moment, the black gave him a false sense of security when his carriage flew off the edge of a cliff, tumbling off the rock and breaking on sharp stone spires. He was a little more lucky, though, because he barely avoided all the spikes but crashed into the hard as steel water. The strong push and pull of the water was too much for his weak body to handle. As he clawed at the rock, hoping to reach the surface, he could feel the air rising from his lungs. He lost his sight and all of his other senses became dull and numb. He didn't even notice the hand that was pulling him by the collar through the water. He was thrown hard to the ground and coughed up water from his lungs like he was a tap. He gasped for air hoarsely, taking in as much as he could. He rolled over on his back with one hand on his throat. His body felt better as he let air into his lungs and felt the grip of life return. There was a shadow next to him, and it looked at him with eyes so intense that they made his skin crawl. When he could see again, the familiar mask and blood red eyes of Obito Uchiha showed up. He widened his own sapphire eyes and tried to stand up, ready to punch the man who was chasing him. But it wasn't meant to be, because the man stomped on him and rolled him over onto his stomach, where he soon felt the pressure of the man's soul on his head. "Don't be so rude, little demon. I dare you to try that again unless you want to die right now," Obito told Naruto as he stomped his foot on his head and caused the blonde to wince and grunt. The way Naruto looked at him made him think, "Now that I see you all sad, it makes me realize that we are not so different after all." He didn't say anything else. "We are both scorned by the world, Naruto. We both desire power to achieve what we want. How does that make me your enemy? You tried to kill me. You tried to kill Konan. You took my arm. You work for the one who has taken everything from me. Well, there's that. I know your pretty little girlfriend is out there, but she's not here to protect you now, is she?" Obito laughed to himself as the Uzumaki's eyes grew wide with shock. "We were watching this hospital ever since you arrived, but we didn't act. Oh no, we waited until she left, giving us the perfect opportunity. But, after all that, what fun is it to watch you die to a stray kunai? No, I have something specific for you, Naruto. A warrior like you doesn't deserve the embarrassing death of being killed by an underling. No, you deserve to die at my hand, in a true battle. Honor, valor, two things you wouldn't expect from someone like me. I'll make you a deal, Naruto. Face me at our chosen location, where we will fight, and one of us will die, and Konan will be safe. No vendettas, no assassins, nothing, not a single hair on her head will be harmed. I make this promise to you, even if I should die tomorrow. She will be safe," said Obito, taking his foot off Naruto's head. Then the blonde breathed a sigh of relief, only to the back of his head pulled by a strong pull. "According to Obito, if you break this small promise, I will take one more thing from you. I also want you to be ready, mostly at full power, so take this." Obito sent a strong chakra pulse through Naruto's spine, activating a seal he had put there during his time en route that controlled his life force. Obito let go of Naruto and said, "See you tomorrow." Naruto then disappeared in a swirl, leaving no trace of his presence behind. As the hours went by, Naruto could barely move. His life force was moving through his body, healing his wounds and putting his bones back together. He thought that he would be fully better by tomorrow, but the tiredness that had been holding him back was still following him around. He walked along the coast where he had fallen, which was a rocky cut in the ground with little to no sand or hard rocks to step on. He even slipped and scratched his feet, which bled into the water. The caves along the walls were lucky for him because they were dry enough for him to sleep in. As he leaned against the wall and thought about what to do next, another memory came back to him. It was the memory that caused this whole mess. Going back. Danzo slept in his own room at Root HQ. He had one eye closed and was slowly breathing. He was, if you can call it that, content. He was having a great time with everything. Naruto had been more useful than ever before. He came back from every mission without any damage and always did it quickly and well. Finally, things were going his way. Well, at least when it came to goals. Except for a single beam of orange light that crept into his visible eye and woke him up. As he sat up, the sounds of fire and smoke filled his ears. As he walked up to one of his windows and looked out, he saw a huge fire destroying everything in its path. He got ready and went to his cabinet to get his weapons. As soon as his hand touched the metal, something scary crashed through his door, breaking the wood and crashing into the room. His hand was held back, and a kunai was dangerously close to his neck. He didn't have much time to defend himself. He threw the attacker away and pinned him against the wall with a quick flex of his arm. When he saw the Master of Root, Naruto glared at him with angry blue eyes and clenched teeth. Naruto threw 2 kunai against 2 walls and then made a single hand seal that set off the seals on the kunai. Danzo then threw the boy across the room. Before Danzo could figure out what was going on, he was knocked to the ground and a heavy object fell on his shoulders. Naruto then jumped into the air and dove at Shinobi no Yami, but Danzo wasn't a weak old man who couldn't walk without his cane. He grabbed Naruto by the face with such speed that not even the blonde could keep up. He then slammed Naruto's head of yellow hair against the ground, fighting off the weight of his invisible arm, and knocked the boy out with a single strike from his hidden right arm. You're a disappointment, to think that an animal like you would even think about scratching me. It's ridiculous, because this simple punishment is not enough. I guess I have to hand you over to Hiruzen, broken, Danzo said as he flew through the air and set the young boy at his feet on fire. Naruto could only scream in pain and curse himself for failing. Backwards look. He was taken out of his thoughts by the sound of footsteps echoing through the small cave. He flickered his left eye and peered out of the corner of his eye. To his own surprise, he saw Konan standing there in the rain with 2 cases in her hands. One was strong and square, and the other was long and rectangular. She was more hurt by seeing him look tired and broken in front of her eyes than by any wound or scar. He didn't say anything else and kept his eyes on the ground because he didn't want to look her in those beautiful honey-colored eyes. She couldn't help but look at the stump of an arm, which was a grim reminder of how he had lost. She grimaced at the sight as the flesh healed over. She put the cases on the ground and moved forward slowly, as if Naruto were a wild animal that was about to attack at any moment. The man moved his body so that his back was now firmly facing hers. The soft light of the moon was now coming into the cave. Naruto, don't shut me out, Konan begged, speaking softly but clearly. Naruto only let out a sigh that was heard. You can cut me out and become more like that man you hate. Wallow in your own pity until you're nothing. But I won't watch you turn yourself into this. Naruto stared at the dirty ground and didn't say anything else. Konan hissed as she kicked open the rectangular case and stabbed its contents into the ground. Naruto turned to look at it and was startled by the sound. He was shocked when he saw the sword in front of him. It was unlike any other sword he had seen before. The grooves on the blade were as black as a moonless night, but the grain of the blade was blood red, the same color as his Sharingan. The hilt was now wrapped in leather and cloth that were made to match the metal. When there wasn't a guard on the sword before, there was now a stronger, more ornate guard with a single, smooth ruby set snugly in the metal. There was also a small string with a red magatama on the pommel. Konan kept talking, what was broken can be made again, stronger than ever. Naruto could only see a hurt look on his face. Naruto looked down again and said, I don't want you to know the pain of what's coming next. I just want to spare you that suffering. Even as Konan got closer, he didn't move. His eyes were sad, but they were also full of longing. She put her hand around his face and kissed him on the forehead. Their eyes met as she did this. If it hurts, then you know it's real, she said in a soft voice. Her eyes were like small, warm torches. He shook her hand off of him, and his hair flew back. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes for a moment. You really don't make things easy for me. The answer she gave him was, there would be no fun in it. He laughed a little at her dry humor, but he quickly lost the smile as his face turned sad, even hurt. All of those memories from a long time ago came back to her, but this one was the worst. Memories of love were the one that kept coming back to haunt him. Naruto whispered, "I thought I loved someone a long time ago." This caught Conan's attention, and she raised an eyebrow in interest. "I thought I knew what it was and what it meant to me. I thought I had found what I had been looking for. But I was wrong. What I fear most is not death, not pain, not even my own past. What I fear most is finding that one thing again, only to realize it never existed," Naruto said, drawing a tear from his cheek as Conan looked at him in pain. "It was during my time, training, did I finally understand this. Some things that you believe are as true as the moon in the pond are just imaginary." Going back. As part of his intense training under Madara's guidance, Naruto was punching Zetsu's. The old man was sleeping on his throne, not paying attention to what was going on around him. On the other hand, Naruto was punching through stone and wood, making his body stronger like a weapon. Sense a pattern? Root. It did look like that, but there was a big difference. Madara cared about him in a way he had never felt before. Having spent the whole day learning his jutsu and taijutsu, he was so tired when it was over that he slouched against his bed. The white Zetsu were smiling as they circled the blonde. One of the Zetsus said, "That was very well done. Madara will be happy." Naruto wiped some sweat off his forehead as his chest moved in time with his breathing. "Already you have mastered your jutsu to well above Kakashi's level. In a few months you will match Jiraiya. Jiraiya's level isn't good enough. I need to be stronger, faster, and more powerful," Naruto said as he looked at the wall, his Sharingan glowing in the dark. He remembered how much you hated the Sannin and how you left him when the child needed him the most. "Don't worry, you're already making enormous progress. Soon, you shall be the most powerful to walk this earth, after Madara dies of course." Naruto looked at him with a frown and a deep breath and said, "Don't be so careless." As if the fact that a weak bug like you can even compete with him is an insult. The Zetsu were really not offended by this comment because Madara had already insulted them a lot of times. "By the way, do you like flowers? In your sleep, you keep talking about Sakura and how you'd like to wish her a good night." Zetsu scratched his chin in interest. "Fuck off, Zetsu, and stop listening to me sleep talk," Naruto told the artificial human as he rolled over on his side. The blonde knew he had hit a nerve with her and could only smile to himself. "Besides, you can't help yourself when you can't let someone go, no matter what. You like her." Wow, hard to believe there's not someone who you don't overly hate or acknowledge as a legitimate human being. That's amazing. Telling the white man to hide behind his intense eyes, Naruto asked, "Zetsu, how do you imagine your death? Would you like me to kill you?" "That's possible." But before anything could be done, another Zetsu jumped out of a rock, screaming because he had bad news. "Hey Naruto. That girl you always talk about in your sleep is in trouble. She and Konoha Anbu are currently fighting it out outside." These words seemed to wake up something inside Naruto, an uncontrollable force that made him jump out of bed so quickly that it even surprised the Zetsu. He clenched his teeth as he stood in front of the huge boulder that blocked his way. This was the only way in or out of the hovel. He didn't want to waste time punching the stone, so he turned on his Mangekyo Sharingan and called up his Susanoo. The white flames from the Susanoo lit up the darkness as the skeletal warrior raised its arm and smashed it against the rock, completely destroying it as it broke into small pieces. With his eyes closed, Madara looked through his locks to see what his apprentice was doing. This action woke him up. "Why are you going to risk your life to save some pathetic girl who hasn't done anything for you?" Madara asked madly. He didn't understand what Naruto was thinking. The Susanoo disappeared, and Naruto turned on his heel to face him, his Sharingan on fire. "I'm sorry, old goat, but there are some things I can't let go of, even Sakura." Madara was very angry at that boy. "Insolent boy, you dare defy your master, because of what? That girl?" The old man spat at the defiant boy. "That girl is your chain. Going to her will only lead to something you can't fathom. When you get back, you will fall to your knees and beg for my forgiveness." The boy didn't seem to mind the glare. Naruto said, "I'm sorry, father. I will come back and apologize, I promise. But I have to save her." He then jumped over the rocks and through the hovel's roof, leaving Madara alone in the dark while he jumped over bones and trees and landed on a branch. "I can feel her from here. She's not by herself. A group of Anbu are with her." Naruto then ran through the trees, avoiding branches and falling leaves as he got closer to a huge crack in the ground that looked like it was made by a god. Naruto landed in the pass and noticed that there were small spots of blood on the ground, but not enough to bleed out. He turned his head to the side and saw flames rising from a town on the other end of the pass. Taking no notice, he ran after the embers, hoping to get to the town before they moved on to their next target. When he got there, the whole village was on fire, and all he could see was bright red and black smoke. What he saw broke his heart: bodies lying around, not even being buried properly. He had to turn away because no one had lived, not even the children, whose throats were cut and their bellies were holed. In the corner of his eye, he saw a trail of footprints of different sizes. He looked closer and saw that at least some of the villagers had made it through this attack, leaving their small town to get away from the people who were after them. If the man's awful moaning hadn't stopped him, he turned on his heel and saw a man leaning back against a burned wagon with blood dripping from his lips. The man had a wound in his stomach. Naruto did nothing but walk up to the man and hold him in his arms as he slowly died. Even Naruto knew that healing the man would not save his life. And while the man coughed and choked, he asked, "What happened here? Who did this to you?" "The demons came from the ground, the sky, and our homes. They killed everyone, including my girl. They butchered her." The man yelled, and Naruto raised an eyebrow. When the man raised his arm from his wound, Naruto asked, "Where did they go?" The man's red hand pointed in the direction of the footprints. His last words were, "After them," as his hand fell to the ground and he died in the blonde's arms. When the person who did this didn't show respect, Naruto did. He closed the villager's eyes and put him gently on the ground. He thought Sakura and the Anbu had come to stop a group of shinobi who were attacking their village, but they hadn't been able to do much. Now, all of the groups were going down further into the pass. To use Sharingan, all to do was follow the tracks. He did, of course, chase after them, and with each step he sped up his walk. The moon was soon hidden by a blanket of black clouds, but it wasn't too dark. He stared in shock as he walked by the bodies of men, women, and children that looked just like the ones back in the burned village. Soon, he felt the familiar flicker of chakra signatures up ahead. To his surprise, he could feel a few of these signatures going out like flames. With clenched teeth, he ran as fast as the wind would carry him until he saw a basin ahead of him. He slowly stopped moving as he thought about the picture in front of him. He just couldn't understand it. There was no reason or motive that was good enough. He was horrified as he saw Sakura Haruno and a group of Anbu kill the villagers one by one. As he watched, throats were cut, babies were taken from their mother's arms and found to have knives in their bellies, and skulls were crushed under Sakura's feet. Blood spread across the hard stone the whole time. He most likely couldn't believe it because he didn't want to. It didn't matter how much he hated Konoha or how they saw him as a demon. He had a small voice telling them that they could never sin like this. But something inside him snapped when he saw Sakura cut the throat of a girl who wasn't even her age. After everything they had been through, he couldn't believe Sakura would kill innocent people without giving it a thought. He was so shocked and angry that he couldn't even make a sound. The only sound he could make was an piercing scream that echoed through the basin. It sounded more like an animal in pain than a man who was horrified by what he had seen. As Sakura watched in shock, the Anbu quickly turned their attention to him. By some lucky chance, blood had gotten into her eye, making it hard for her to see anything but a black blur screaming to himself. When Naruto snapped his head back, it was almost like he was hit by something. He fell to his knees, and his Mangekyo Sharingan started to glow in the dark. He could barely breathe as the stinging feeling in his red orbs got worse. The hard rock hurt his fingertips as his nails scraped against it. "I cannot. I just can't," he told himself as he picked himself up off the ground and stood on his legs. His eyes flickered for a split second as a hail of kunai and shuriken pierced his flesh and cut his skin. They went deep into his body and stayed there, sticking out from his flesh as his blood ran down his limbs. "I just can't believe it," Naruto yelled as he broke out into a powerful sprint, the ground shaking under his feet with each step. As he got closer, one of the Anbu pulled out his sword to block the blonde's move. This was the last thing the Anbu did before Naruto pressed his flat palm against his chest. He said, "Kami-yo-no-yo, Shinto, way of the gods," and several spiked hands shot out of his body, killing him and anyone else who got close in an instant. He looked at a survivor who had only gotten a small scratch and then turned to Naruto. Several more Konoha Anbu came charging from behind and speared the blonde in the chest with swords, hoping that it would kill him. They were wrong, though, because Naruto turned on his heel and put paper bombs on their chests that he had been training with. He then kicked them away with such force that it broke their bones and their friend. "Haruno, hurry up. Find out more," yelled the captain, but something about his words sent Naruto into a primal rage, and he ran after Sakura, who was running toward a body in the crowd without paying attention to the approaching blonde beast. Naruto was stabbed, cut, sliced, and got other wounds as he ran through the Anbu, but he never seemed to mind. He just shrugged them off or ignored them completely. When he broke through, he didn't even give Sakura a chance to defend herself before he slammed his fist into her head, sending her skull crashing to the ground and leaving spider web like cracks. He then did it again by slamming his foot into the back of her head, feeling it. He threw her to the ground again and hit her face hard with his fists, screaming as he did so. After a minute, his plans came to an end because his fists were broken, his fingers were bent, blood was leaking from his knuckles, and his wrists were bruised. All the Anbu that were watching were terrified of his cruelty. He looked up, stepping off Sakura, whose face was now a bloody mess instead of anything beautiful. "Kamiyonanio," Naruto whispered, using one of his strongest jutsus. The Anbu had no chance. An invisible force hit them like a tsunami, lifted them into the air, and started slowly tearing the skin off their bodies, breaking bones like sticks and painting their blood all over the place like paint. Their screams filled the air, making a haunting symphony that would haunt anyone who heard it. Naruto took deep breaths as he looked down at the badly hurt body of his ex-lover. He couldn't bring himself to feel anything for her. He didn't feel any emotions at all, not anger, sadness, joy, or anything else. There was just a blank space where all those emotions were supposed to be. I don't feel anything. In this world. As Naruto gasped, "I'm nobody." A tear fell from his eye, stained with blood. His Mangekyo still shone like flames in the dark. End of flashback. While looking at him, she felt both sorry for him and horrified that a village like Konoha could be so disgustingly cruel. She didn't like that village much, but the thought that they would do something so horrible made her want to throw up. It turned out that Iwa Shinobi had broken into the village and stolen important information about the Anbu Black operations. They then pretended to be villagers and slowly made their way across the countryside. Konoha then followed. Because of a little trickery, they killed everyone in every village between Iwa and Konoha in a mad rush to get the information until I stopped them. In the end, Sakura lived, but I think she still has the invisible scars from that battle on her face. The thought of her made him sad, and even their short meetings have brought up things he would rather forget. Conan said, "You loved her." Her lower lip shook a little because she knew what the likely answer would be. "Yes," he said. The words hit Conan like a ton of bricks, and she lowered her head in pain. She stared at the ground and grabbed handfuls of her clothes. She was the only person I ever truly loved, someone I could not cut away. After that, I no longer felt anything for her. The illusion of her disappeared as I fell into the depths of my own cage. Soon, the old goat would be the only one I loved after that because he was the only one who was truly kind to me. For a long time, there was no one after he left. "How about now?" asked Conan. Naruto's eyes looked down for a second as he thought about the question he had been asking himself for a long time. He could feel his heart beating against his chest, his blood racing through his veins, and the undeniable thirst in the back of his throat. He turned to face her, hoping to force the words out of his mouth, but he just couldn't. Maybe his actions would speak louder than words. Beware of Lemon. Not only did he cup her by the chin, which surprised her, but he also pressed his lips against hers, which shocked her even more. She closed her lips gently, enjoying the touch as she wrapped her arms around his neck, deepening their connection as their love for each other poured out. As they fought for control, their tongues slowly worked their way into each other's mouths and caressed their teeth. This dance went on for minutes, with each movement and pause in breath perfectly timed with the other. But it was clear from their throes that they wanted more. They wanted to kiss, explore, and learn everything about each other through this exchange of feelings. As she lay on her back, he gently pushed her to the ground while keeping their lips locked. His one remaining arm supported him as their chests pressed together. The heat was intoxicating, and each touch was thrilling. They had been waiting for this for so long, and it made them feel even better as they continued to care for each other. She ran her hands over his toned, muscular chest, massaging every curve and ripple. She was disappointed when he pulled away and kneeled down as her legs began to circle his waist. Sweat was running down his neck and beads were falling from her forehead. With his left arm, he took off his shirt, showing off his best shape just for her. He lowered himself again and kissed her cheeks and ear, making her breathe heavier as she let out a scream. She bit her lip as she pushed the blonde away, putting her hand on his chest and easing him onto his back. He let out a small groan of displeasure, which made her smile wryly as he tensed up and writhed at her touch. She carefully straddled him and sat on top of him while his hand explored her thighs. Taking her hand off of his sculpted ch. Her hand reached to the back of her robe, the one she wore under her cloak, and slowly pulled down on the zipper to make her lover even more uncomfortable. For him, the weight was unbearable. She liked playing with him, playing with his baser instincts. He let out a sigh of relief as she took off the garment, revealing her beautiful breasts. He wanted to say something, like how she looked like an angel. He stood up and met her lips, starting their oral battle all over again. This time, his hand cupped her left breast and massaged it in his palm. She moaned into his mouth. His touch was like ecstasy. His finger made her spine curl, and she had to break their lip lock to catch her breath while he kept at it. She arched her back in surprise and pleasure as his lips circled the hardened bud while his sole hand continued to play with her. As if it were sweet revenge, he moved his tongue and lips painfully fast. His free hand moved from her breast to her spine, sending chills up and down her back. He then grabbed the flesh on her behind, which made her gasp. Usually, she would kill anyone who dared touch her in this way, but Naruto's touch, its softness and lusciousness, made those feelings fade away in the bliss. No. There was a blush on her face as Naruto looked up at her and let go of one of the buds while she looked down at him. "Take it off," she said, standing up and taking a few steps back as the blonde moved his hand and took off his pants with help from his lover. When it was free, Konan looked at the firm rod and saw Naruto sitting up and getting ready to sit down, but she wouldn't let that happen. The blonde pressed he. She got on all fours like a cat, and her amber eyes sparkled in the moonlight. He gasped as she licked his cock, enjoying the sensation of her tongue licking the tip and the saliva that ran down it. It hurt him to know that he wasn't in charge and was at her mercy. As her mouth wrapped around the tip of his penis, all he could think about was her name, Loss. She slowly bobbed her head, making him meow and groan with pleasure as she licked and lapped at the tip of his sex. She could feel it twitch on her lips, and his legs moved and squirmed in response. It didn't matter to her. He had been in unbearable pain for a long time, and tonight she wanted to wash that away with joy and delight. She stopped trying to help them because she could tell they both wanted something more. She moved again, swaying her hips as she got down on all fours. Her honey-colored eyes locked with his deep sapphire ones. She barely had time to react before Naruto pinned her to the ground and took control. They stared at each other, their hot breath hitting each other's faces and his hair tickling her cheeks. She kissed his neck, and he pushed her under so that she was lying on her stomach on the ground. His shadow covered her, and he kissed her neck again. Her skin shook when he touched it. "I've wanted you for so long," he said as he pressed his face against her neck. His breath was rough, and his eyes were cloudy. He lined himself up at her door and begged, "Please, I want you." She gasped and kissed his cheek as he dove into her. She gasped and a small amount of saliva leaked out of the side of her lips as he filled her up. He was gentle, pushing himself deeper slowly and gracefully to make sure she wouldn't get hurt. It was hard for him not to ravage her. Her walls squeezed his girth, making him lose control. It was hard for him to even keep himself from slamming her. Naruto's heart raced, and he pressed himself deeper into her sheath, as if they were one. He was sure that there was no trickery going on, and he felt something for Konan that he had lost a long time ago. She breathed again, and he could hear her begging, more, harder, faster. With those words in mind, he pushed himself into her with more passion, speed, and force. As he sped up, the sound of her mules got louder and heavier right next to his ear, and soon he could hear the sound of naked flesh slapping naked flesh. She bucked her hips to match his beat, which made him grit his teeth as he tried to keep himself together. He then claimed her mouth, which was hard to do since he was on her back, but he did it anyway. She moaned into his lips as he pounded into her, and she gasped for air when they finally split. His walls got tighter under him, letting her know she was getting close. He never stopped or wavered. All he did was press his lips against her ear. He only said, "I love you." It was the words he had been trying to say all along but couldn't bring himself to say. She smiled, but it wasn't a passionate smile. It was the kind of smile that only comes from being happy. His hand gripped hers tightly as the joy washed over them. He grunted and breathed as he gave her slower, heavier slams as he released his seed into her womb. She screamed in pure bliss, and her fluids gushed out as they let the orgasm ride over them. Both of their tired eyes closed for a second, and they didn't move. When she opened them again, she saw that his hand was around hers and stroking her fingers. She moved under him, taking away some of his length, and stared at him. His eyes were half closed as her free hand stroked his cheek. She pressed her lips against his, not kissing him but not pulling away either. She had to say it, let the words flow like a floodgate. While giving him a soft, chaste kiss, she told him, "I love you." End of Lemon. As the hours went by, they fell into a happy sleep with their bodies pressed together to keep warm in the cave. But one of them had to wake up because he was constantly being reminded of his fate. Naruto woke up and realized that he would have to fight Obito in a few hours to decide his fate and Konan's fate, which he had kept from her. When he looked at her smiling face, his little dreams hurt. Not long after, he was fully dressed in his brand new battle gear. He wore Toby pants with gray lines on them, a golden sash around his waist with a blue sea and waves design, held together by a single round buckle, with the ends of the sash hanging between his legs, and old-age shinobi greaves on his feet and shins that were made up of metal segments that ran up his shins. His chest was covered in highly segmented. He had no idea that his preparations had woken Konan up. She had a sad look on her face as she heard the clicking of beltings and the folding of metal. "Are you going? Did you hear me?" she asked her lover in a voice just above a whisper. He replied, "I thought you were sleeping." He bowed his head in shame at what he was about to do. "I was, but everything's colder without you," she said, making Naruto purse his lips. "You're going to fight Obito," she said, clenching her fist when she said the name. The blonde replied, "For you." He then raised his head and stared out the cave's entrance. A scowl formed on Konan's face as she hissed, "That's not what I asked for." He replied, "You never had a say in the matter." "So what? I don't matter?" With that scowl still on her face, her words were like knives, cutting Naruto with each one. "I didn't say that. What will happen after this would break me if I don't do this. Please don't make me live like that again," he begged as the pain shook him like a leaf in the wind. "Are you going to come back?" was her last question. She was holding her breath and scowling less as she waited for him to answer. Instead, he turned around and knelt down next to her, pushing a few strands of blue hair out of her ear while whispering something loud like a church bell. His last words were, "If I die, don't look for me." He was carried away by a gust of wind, leaving Konan with tears running down her face as she dumped her heart, only to find out it would be ripped out. It hurts to love, but that's what makes it real. In its own way, the forest was peaceful, quiet, and calm. The sound of the birds singing, the green leaves swaying in the wind, and the water running made a beautiful melody that made everyone happy. The new Tanbogiri stabbed everyone in the ground, even Naruto, who was sitting on a rock and looking down. As he fed the birds, he held out his palm upwards and the palm of his hand full of seed. The sun was just starting to rise. Even though he hated this world and thought it was broken, he let out a sigh. And he had to agree that there was some beauty in it, when it wasn't being destroyed by greedy people and animals like them. When he flicked his hand, the seed flew across the ground, and the birds were right there to pick it up. As he watched his feathered friends eat, he thought about Konan and how he left her in that cave after they told each other how they felt about each other. He was holding on with only one hand because the thought of her made him feel guilty and hurt. He had no idea what the next hour would bring. Would he die? Yes, it was possible that he would go kill Obito. The answer was pretty much the same as before, but he never felt like he was doing it for himself. You see, Obito had given him a choice: come fight him or watch Konan die in front of him. He would rather be cut by 1,000 blades than let even one of them touch her. That was the clear answer to the question. Even though these new feelings were strange at first, he slowly came to terms with them, and they made him feel warm again. He cared about her. He laughed at the idea. In all his years, he had never thought he would find someone worthy of his love. She treated him like no one else and motivated him to do better. Just thinking about how she's changed him made me feel sick, It was strange to him that it was making him feel all of these things again. Before, all he knew was hate. Now, there was a warmth like no other, and both hate and love were leading his hand. That did sound really cheesy. His thoughts were broken by the sound of leaves rustling. The birds quickly took to the sky to learn what was going on. Right away, he hunched over and pulled out his kunai, ready to attack. The Sharingan eyes were glowing red. In the soft morning light, what came out was a white wolf that looked almost like a ghost. He closed his eyes and slowly put the kunai back where it belonged. The wolf never growled or showed its teeth. It just walked up to the lone shinobi, stared him in the eye, and bit off his remaining fingers. Lone wolf, I can relate. We are both warriors who have been shunned and sent away from our worlds. But this makes us strong, and soon we don't care what other people think of us, Naruto said as he stood up and put away his black blade. The wolf was whining at him, pleading with him not to leave. As the blonde walked away, putting on his Oni mask to get ready for the final battle, the big dog lowered its head and said, "Goodbye." He jumped over the tree line slowly and softly, and it felt like every step he took could cause an earthquake. The tall grass reached up to his waist, and each blade was straight and pointy. There was nothing else there but the mountains to the north and the tree line everywhere else. He could feel the echoes and cries. This was an old battlefield from the clan wars. The blood had stained the ground, making the grass grow tall and straight. Any bones and armor that were still there had been eaten by time or picked up by the survivors. His back was warm and lit up by the sun. The soft rays took away the cold in his bones. His rival, his enemy, the one who had really set him on this path and taken everything from him since the beginning of his life, was coming soon. Now this is the last thing Obito would take from him if he was going to die. He came out of a circle that was warping, and the first thing that was seen was his famous white mask. He was wearing a gunbai on his back, and his purple robes were gently moving in the wind. The younger shinobi didn't say or do anything. He or she just stood there and watched them stare at each other. Obito looked up at the sky and said, "Well, I'm glad you could make it. It would have been lonely here without you, just me and the birds. After all that we have done to each other, we are here now at this convergence of fate. And of course, being a man of my word, Konan will be safe. She will have no trouble from me." Naruto let out a small sigh of relief at this, but he never let his guard down. This man was dangerous, there was no doubt about it. He was supposed to be more than just beautiful, isn't it? In the morning or the dusk, there are so many colors, it's a shame that it's not worth saving. Yeah, I'm sure it would look even better drenched in your blood, Naruto growled, his red eyes narrowing. Obito just shrugged it off. Absolutely not scared at all. Oh, so violent Naruto, there's no need for such things, can we just be civil, talk this over like men? Everything involving you has been a mistake, a terrible mistake. Danzo has gone too far, distancing you, hurting you, he's rather short-sighted, a fault that I too shared at some point. Told Obito, trying to reason with the younger man. Your words don't make any sense to me at all. Why should I believe anything you say? He hissed, seeing right through the Uchiha's act. Oh, this has nothing to do with me or my words. It doesn't matter if you believe them or not. What are you trying to do? I asked you this question a long time ago, but you never gave me a straight answer, Obito said, going slowly around his fellow Sharingan user. And I'm sure I would tell you, when you lay broken at my feet. Ah, pity, if only our paths could have crossed as friends, mentors, brothers, I'm sure things would have been better, more cordial at the very least. You know I was once a student to your father. Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage. He's not my father. Your feelings for him don't matter, only the blood you two share in the days leading up to your birth. He was shouting to the entire world of his excitement. I know this because I watched from the sidelines. He regarded you as his son no matter what, even if you were made a sacrifice in the eyes of his people. He knew that the people would hate you, scorn you, for something out of your control. But you were valuable to many, even me, then your life would be spared. I even staved off every assassination attempt on your life before you could wipe the spit from your lip. Of course he wouldn't have done it if he had known the truth of the attack. What magical truth could this be? Naruto asked, not showing any thanks for what the Uchiha had done in the past, even though what he was doing now painted a pretty good picture. Would you believe me if I told you that Danzo was planning a coup d'état against Konoha? To usurp your father's position and install himself as Hokage, bring the village under his shinobi way. Danzo came to me for help, told me everything of his plan, to make the 9 tails look like a random disaster, let the Yondaime and Sandaime die protecting it and he would be the only one left to take the position. Orochimaru was too caustic, too untamed, Tsunade at that point was a wandering drunk and Jiraiya was nowhere to be seen. You really think those 3 could actually be a strong Hokage? Ironic now that one of them is Hokage. Join me Naruto, and together we can cast down Danzo. I would never join you, Naruto said, even if your words were sweet and your tongue were silver. I'm a man of my word, just like you. Obito sighed, disappointed that he couldn't convince the blonde to join him like so many others had before him. Shame, but if this is what you want, Obito said glumly as he took his gunbai off his back and swung it around. The force of the swings sent strong gusts of wind through the grass. Naruto just huffed at this small show of force. It didn't stop him in any way. He didn't reach for his blade, but he couldn't deny the tickle and feel of metal in his hand, it was more of an urge. Instead, he stooped down and put his feet on the ground in a battle. Ready position. The shuriken appeared in his hand and he threw them so quickly that it was like lightning. He chose to make the first move. It wasn't a surprise that the shuriken moved through Obito like he wasn't there, leaving no marks behind. When Naruto jumped into the air, he spread out more shuriken and did a jutsu with a quick flick of his fingers. He roared, "Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." A few shuriken turned into many, and they all fell on Obito like rain. The same thing happened. The shuriken passed through him like a mirage. But that wasn't what caught Naruto's attention. It was a small movement to the left at the very end that caught his attention. His eternal Mangekyo Sharingan was as bright as the sun as he sent chakra into his left eye. The voice said, "Kamiyo Sutepo no Shinigami, Steps of the Death God." Obito didn't have time to react because he felt a cold blade pierce his chest, making him cough up blood from his mask. Naruto held the Tanbogiri that speared him in the chest, and he cocked his head over to look at Naruto. The unique pattern in his eyes said everything that needed to be said. The blonde put his foot on the Uchiha's back and pulled his sword out of his chest. The survivor's body hit the ground like a rock. Naruto wiped the blood off his katana and put it on his back. That was disappointing. I was hoping for more. He stomped his foot and started to walk away, not noticing the body of his enemy. It was over. All of this fighting and pain ended in an instant, and he was finally free. A voice said, "I'm sorry the prologue wasn't to your liking." This made Naruto raise his eyebrows as he was hit so hard in the face that he skidded across the ground and split the skin above his left eyebrow, under his mask. He grunted in pain. When he heard the sound of chains clinking, his ears perked up, and he looked up to see Obito, who was looking great with no scratches on him. "But the show doesn't start yet, and it would be rude to not see this through to the end," she said. Naruto just stared in shock. He was sure he was dead as it was possible to be, a body. He was sure that this wasn't genjutsu because he could tell that none of their chakras were being harmed. But that didn't bother him. Maybe this needed another demonstration. The blonde stood up and looked at Obito with eyes that looked like snakes. When Obito hit the ground with the tip of his gunbai, he made hand seals for a fire jutsu. Kaden. Hosenka no Jutsu, Fire Release, Phoenix Sage Flower Jutsu, yelled Obito as he breathed out several small fireballs that flew at Naruto at a very fast rate. The blonde didn't try to avoid them. Instead, she pulled out more shuriken and threw them at the flames. When the metal hit the small balls of fire, they were quickly covered by the burning streaks. This made flaming shuriken that turned Obito's attack against him. When Obito saw this, he only grabbed his gunbai again and blocked the fireballs. He opened his eyes wide when Naruto rushed forward with the Tanbogiri and stabbed it through the gunbai's tough wood. Even Obito was shocked by what Naruto did. The younger shinobi kicked both of his weapons away before he could do anything. He then cocked his only hand backwards for a powerful palm strike. And Obito thought this was his chance. He easily blocked Naruto's attack by grabbing his hand and laughing to himself. The Uchiha's right eye started to swirl like a hurricane, and Naruto was quickly sucked into the eye of the distortion. His opponent didn't know that this was all part of a sneaky plan until Naruto quickly took off an explosive tag from his wrist seal while he was being sucked in. The blow completely erased Obito's face, and Naruto was thrown backwards and slid across the ground, his only arm slightly burned. When he looked up, He saw that his enemy's face had been blown off right down to the bone, which was a very scary sight. The Uchiha fell to the ground again, this time dead. But Madara's student didn't let out a sigh of relief or a gasp of freedom. He just stood there motionless as Obito's body disappeared, as if he had never been there. A few steps away, the same man walked over to his gunbai, picked it up, and took the Tanbogiri off of its wooden frame. "You are very sneaky, Naruto." A simple but clever plan could have turned deadly if for one small detail, Obito said as he threw Naruto the sword, which hit him just as he was getting up. The scion of the Uzumaki clan breathed Izanagi. Obito clapped in shock when he realized what had happened. The technique that rewrites all things in this universe, even death. That's right, the forbidden jutsu of the Uchiha clan, one that led to decades of bloodshed among my clan. I must admit, Naruto, you are stronger than me, possibly smarter. Our scuffle on that train, you were defeated because of many things hampering you, debilitating you. But this time, nothing is stopping us. Whoever dies here will fall to the other's wit, not their power. But I will let you in on the secret. I have incorporated many Sharingan into my being, gifts from my clansmen to prolong and extend the use of the Izanagi. But unfortunately, it comes with a small cost. As Naruto sheathed his black and red blade again, he thought, your intangibility only lasts a minute instead of the usual 5. Managing all those Sharingan is taking a toll on your body. I will only be able to really kill you when all those eyes have lost their light. His eyes never wavered as he watched his enemy. Obito smirked under his mask and gripped his gunbai. But you don't know how many there are. That's the tricky part. There was nothing else, the Uchiha said. He just put his hands together to make the snake seal and then slammed them into the ground. Mokuton. Jukai K-Tan, wood release, nativity of a world of trees. Naruto's eyes grew wide in shock as he watched what was happening. The ground beneath him started to shake as a sea of trees rose from the ground like flowers. He let out a gasp when he saw the roots coming at him fast, making him jump into the air to avoid them. The plants didn't stop chasing after him despite this small action, so he grabbed the Tanbogiri's handle, took the blade out of its sheath, and spun it quickly like a spinning top, cutting through the wood like butter. Obito couldn't press his attack because Naruto was moving so quickly it was like he was a blur. Even Obito had trouble keeping up with him as the blonde circled around him, trees following his every move. Unfortunately, the blonde's attempt to cut Naruto with his katana failed because the blade was too short to go through anything. The Uchiha, however, saw an opening and slammed his gunbai into the blonde's gut with such force that Naruto coughed up spit. Naruto sheathed his blade in a whirl and cycled through his hand seals for a jutsu once he got his balance back. Garasutan. Banshee Heian, glass release, certain death shards, said Naruto as he slid his hand across empty space, sending spikes of glass that looked like daggers through the wood and toward Obito. Obito quickly raised his gunbai and hit the glass with ease, breaking it into pieces. Naruto did another jutsu called Garasutan, Kakureru Shiryoku no Jutsu, glass release, hiding in sight technique. He then used the broken pieces of glass to make mirror images of himself that quickly surrounded Obito. The Uchiha was one of the guards, and when he swung his gunbai and hit the Narutos, they quickly turned into glass, and more were made from the small pieces. All of them crowded around him, and their fists and kicks easily went through him. Soon, the Uchiha could only see his reflection in the clear pieces. When one of the clones with a kunai cut his robe, he knew he was being pushed to his limit. But before he could fully understand this, the real Naruto jumped out of the glass and hit him hard with an uppercut. Then, he hit him with an axe kick that broke Obito's mask in 2 pieces. The older shinobi quickly rolled away, protecting himself from another attack. The two then fought each other with their own weapons. When it looked like neither of them would win, they jumped over the other, sending Obito's mask half broken from Naruto's painful attack. The last member of the clan that had died had to show respect for Naruto. He was truly terrifying. Every attack, move, and even breath he made was carefully planned and expected. There was no waste at all. But this wasn't the time to be impressed. Obito pressed his attack while Naruto was attacked by many trees and roots. One lucky hit threw Naruto flying and sending him crashing into the woods, but the blonde was able to get back up and quickly moved through the tree trunks and branches, cutting the roots that were after him apart with the Tanbogiri. Naruto couldn't believe Obito had mastered this Kekkei Genkai to such a high level. In some ways, he was even better than the Shodam Hokage. He knew to be careful around this set of jutsu. To say it was very flexible would be an understatement. He knew the dangers of these trees and flowers from hearing Madara's many stories about them. He tried to get away by jumping higher and climbing up the branches, but it didn't help because the plants had a vice-like grip on his ankle and slammed him to the ground. They quickly pinned him to the soft ground and almost knocked him to his knees, but he always found a way out. Garasutan. Kowarita Hakucho Tsubasa, glass release, broken swan's wing. Naruto yelled as several glass spikes shot out of the ground and easily tore through the tree's bark and trunks, cutting them into pieces that could be used as logs. After that, Naruto did his signature jutsu and jumped into the air. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto yelled as many copies of himself appeared all around him. Obito clenched his teeth at this, thinking that the young man's fake Kekkei Genkai was much stronger than he thought. The real Naruto screamed, Garasutan, Banshee Heian, glass release, certain death shards. He held out his hand in the air and a single, long, sharp piece of glass appeared. Obito could almost see that he wouldn't be able to avoid that thing, so he got his own jutsu ready to fight it. And Obito yelled, Mokuton, Sashiki no Jutsu, wood release, cutting technique. He then shot out a big stick of wood that hit the Uzumaki clones with similar sticks of wood. But the real Naruto threw the huge piece of glass so fast that you would miss it if you closed your eyes. It ripped right through the hardened branch of wood, sending small pieces flying everywhere, and stuck itself into Obito before he could even defend himself. There was a huge cloud of dust that came from the impact, and the branches of the many trees around them stopped moving. When the Uzumaki landed on the ground, he was slightly out of breath as he watched his work, the impaled Uchiha, turn into a human kebab, with blood leaking out of his lip as the technique destroyed his whole chest. No surprise, the picture of his opponent went away, leaving only the broken glass behind. He turned his head to the side and looked at Obito through the holes in his Oni mask that were meant to be eyes. Obito had only half of his mask on, so the right side of his scarred face could be seen. Naruto clenched his teeth behind his mask and did his signature jutsu again, even though he knew that everyone in the Sharingan was watching him. When he said, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, clouds of smoke filled the air with many Narutos who surrounded Obito as he reloaded his gunbai for the battle. Each one of them charged at him with their Tanbogiri drawn, and Obito fought back. Kaden. Bakufu Ranbu, fire release, blast wave wild dance. And he breathed out a huge column of flame that swirled like a cyclone. This was supposed to get rid of the clones, but it also engulfed the small forest that was made in flames, with the heat rising as the plumes got bigger. Enten. Kagutsuchi, blaze release, added tool Earthlord. Naruto roared, making a small stream of black flames that shot things in the shape of spikes. When Obito saw the spikes, he quickly sent chakra into his gunbai and swatted them away. He knew that chakra was notoriously hard to burn, which made the Amaterasu spread to the trees and burn the wood and even the fires that Obito had called up. When they locked their weapons together, the forest was already starting to fall apart under the power of Amaterasu. The heat was quickly destroying the forest, but Obito and Naruto didn't notice as he hit Naruto in the gut with his gunbai again, sending the young man skidding across the ground. Kaden. Gokyaku no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. Obito yelled as he threw out a huge ball of fire that would have burned the blonde to death if he hadn't cut it in half with the Tanbogiri. When Obito slammed his hand against the ground and used another fire jutsu, he kept attacking. Kaden. Sugoi-kan Kaisei, fire release, great flame formation. And streams of fire erupted from the ground like a volcano. Naruto jumped out of the way of the flames, but Obito cornered him and swung his gunbai down hard on his head, smashing mask and bone together as Naruto's face hit the hard ground. The right part of his mask that was over his eye broke off, but most of the design was still there. Naruto carefully picked himself up. The last attack had left his body shaking and his head ringing. The next hit from the gunbai hit him in the chin and sent him crashing through the bark of the burning trees. He couldn't defend himself. As he fell to the ground, he was still trying to figure out what was going on around him, but it looked like Obito had won this little fight. He just barely raised his sword in time to block the next wave of attacks. The hole he made in the gunbai made him narrow his eyes as he looked ahead to the next attack. He was caught off guard by the next blow to the chest from the steel. Like wood, which sent him crashing to the ground again. He felt like 1,000 fists had beaten him beyond recognition. He dropped the Tanbogiri and leaned on his other arm to steady himself. He coughed up blood that spread out on the ground. He let out a gasp when he saw Obito getting closer. It almost stopped his heart. Now's not the time, Naruto, to daze off into your thoughts. You've only used one of your Kaminanyo, the 7 abilities that defy nature. It's really disappointing not to see the rest. Sutepo no Shinigami, the ability to alter time around you so to give yourself better advantage, a superbly powerful ability, except it comes with a drawback. You will remain like that, forever, never aging, and time never flowing, unless you intend to inflict pain or death on another. Then the spell breaks, a unique little trick. You must continuously control your own emotions so to perfectly master the technique. No doubt your time en route helped you benefit from this experience," said Obito as Naruto drew his eyes. Your reasoning was spot on. Shinto, Way of the Gods, allows you to create portals around your limbs, enhancing the blows of your taijutsu, except these limbs only move in a linear fashion. You can't properly defend yourself while using it. There are others, but those are the 2 I've seen. If you're going to defeat me, you will need to rely on all your abilities, not just the limited tricks you have shown me. Naruto only glared at the Uchiha, he taunting him in his own special way. When Obito raised his gun to hit Naruto again, he knew he was going against his will. Kamiyonaniyo, Chikyu Tentu no Ibuki, earth-reducing breath of heaven, Naruto whispered, and a huge cloud of gray ash came out of nowhere to block Obito's attack. As Naruto quickly sheathed the Tanbogiri, the man who had said that smirked and jumped away. Hayden. Fujin, Ash Release, God of Wind. In an instant, the ash started swirling around Naruto and then exploded outward like a cyclone, destroying the forest that was on fire around them and leaving the battleground with scars. Obito just smiled at this because, like the other times, the ash didn't hurt him much and just flew by him. Very dangerous, very smart, and I think it's time for a change of scenery, Obito said as he ran through hand seals while Naruto watched from behind. Doden. No Haku Dai Kyojin, Earth Release, Grasp of the Earth Giant. Obito yelled, slamming his hands together in the snake seal. Naruto's eyes grew wide as he saw the effect happen right away. The ground below started to shake and quake, and Naruto lost his balance as he felt a huge amount of pressure lift him off the ground. The air became thin, and he realized that he and his partner were being lifted into the air by the land itself. He turned over on his side and saw mountains rising from the ground. Obito had built a whole community of floating rocks the size of small towns. Naruto gasped at how big everything was as he turned his head to look at each platform. Much better, and now the fall would kill you, Obito said as Naruto raised his left arm and sent the ash rocketing toward Obito. Obito didn't worry about it, though, and let it pass through his form. As Naruto stood up straight, his wounds stopped being important as he glared at Obito, who was quietly laughing to himself. You understand now, Obito. You can't touch me or get close to me without killing yourself. I have a shield of 10,000 blades protecting me now, he said. Naruto raised an eyebrow in response to Obito's words, how wrong you are. You may see floating rocks, but that's not what this jutsu's real power is. Its real power is dominance, control, and observation, Obito said, raising his hand to Naruto. Naruto just looked at it with a cautious interest. He got very excited when he felt a tiny prick on the tip of his index finger. When he looked down, he saw that the tip of his one index finger was bleeding. Dead things belong to me now. Your blades can't touch me. Naruto's eyes grew even bigger as he saw the image of Obito's gunbai hitting him in the chin and sending him flying across the surface of the floating rock. He was shocked that his ash didn't defend him. You must never let your emotions get the best of you. They could betray you, Obito told Naruto as he stood up and glared angrily at the Uchiha. The blades of ash, even under your control, is still a material you create to exist in this world. Thus, while in this barrier created by these rocks, they are under my control. Even your own Tanbogiri is willing to betray you now. All these things in this world are subject to control. But that control is robbed from you, and now even your own senses are belong to me while inside this sphere of influence. Naruto spat out, do you ever shut up? As he carefully watched each blade of ash with his Sharingan. Naruto warned Obito as he stood tall and smirked at the blonde, under your control? I don't think so. Everything I made exists to serve me. So you made stones float, spectacular, it won't make a difference. In an instant, Obito appeared in front of Naruto and swung his gunbai, but the ash blocked it. This surprised Obito, since he should be able to use the technique perfectly. It was a jutsu he learned just to kill Naruto. He tried it again, but the ash got in the way and killed him again. Maybe you don't have the power to control my power? If that's the case, then this great technique of yours is useless. Obito was only surprised by Naruto's little trick, which he could see with his Sharingan. Naruto was putting a huge amount of his chakra into the ash, which gave him control of all the blades again. After raising his hand again, Obito said, "All things are under my control. Even you." This made Naruto freeze in place, as the Doton technique paralyzed his whole body. Even his ash stopped moving as Obito ended this clever plan. Obito let Naruto look up just as the ash fell on top of him and consumed him completely. "I wonder what it's like to be cut by 10,000 blades," Naruto said. The blonde was shredded by his own technique, and blood flew out like a sprinkler. He wasn't even allowed to scream while the swords kissed him. Ashes piled up on the ground, signaling the end of the battle. Naruto stood there, pieces of his armor torn and frayed, deep wounds cutting through his whole body, and blood dripping from his left arm like a tap. This was a gift from Obito. Obito came up to him and said, "You won't be able to use ninjutsu without your only arm. All you can do now is kick me in the shin. But it looks like you were able to survive that attack. It's likely because you told those blades not to cut you by putting even more chakra into that jutsu. It definitely kept you from being nothing but meat at this point." Naruto could only breathe hoarsely, and his mask looked a lot like Obito's, with only half of it still on his face. The younger shinobi moved forward slowly with the little strength he had left. With all the strength he had left, he managed to raise his one arm briefly. "Cute, but you should know that." The Uchiha couldn't say anything else because he was coughing up blood. He put his hand over his mouth and blood poured out through the spaces between his fingers. He almost threw up as he fell to his knees and grabbed his throat. While Obito was falling to the ground with blood pouring out of his mouth, Naruto dropped his arm and spoke. "Even if all things are in your control, the space in your lungs seems to be exempt from this." Obito's body disappeared into nothingness as Naruto let out a gasp. His opponent came back, unharmed, and stood on top of another rock above the Uzumaki. He couldn't enjoy this for long. "The blades of the Kamiyo are so minute that you wouldn't even notice breathing them in. You breathed in too much and all those compacted blades did the trick, tearing apart your body from the inside out. I just had to put on a show to buy some time as you continue to breathe them in, and even you can't avoid the damage from inside," the blonde said as he dropped to one knee. "Even so," Obito said, "that trick won't work again. You can't use jutsu, your blades are working against you, and now you have no choice but to give up." He raised his hand and didn't look as cocky as he had before. Naruto felt his enemy's chakra pulse and used another technique to force more chakra into his eyes. This could either save his life or end it in an instant. Kamiyo, Mojiretsu Sono Kankai Unmei, string that ties fate. Naruto yelled as an ethereal thread appeared from his wrist and landed in the beak of a small bird. At the same time, the ash from the Kamiyo fell on top of him. Obviously, Obito thought this was the end. Imagine his shock when the ash cleared and Naruto was found in the same state he was in before. Obito had the ash circle around the blonde, which was said to be tearing him apart. He got even more angry when the same thing happened. He threw one of the huge rocks at his opponent, hoping that the weight of the stone would kill him, but nothing happened. The bird on the string kept flying around the man as if nothing was wrong. This made the Uchiha so angry that he jumped down, ignoring the danger of the ash, and started beating the blonde badly with his fists and kicking him in the back. Due to not being able to use any jutsu to defend himself, Naruto did nothing but accept the punishment. Even though he hit his face with his fists, he didn't get hurt, his mask didn't break, and he wasn't even bleeding. It wasn't broken or chipped when he kicked the young man in the teeth, and he didn't even scream in pain. When Naruto's enemy did something that made him mad, he kicked him off because he wasn't strong enough to hurt him and wasn't even a threat at this point. This made Obito clench his teeth until he saw the little blue bird flying around with a red string in its beak. It had to be connected to this event, so Obito hit it with his gunbai. As it fell to the ground in a small heap, dead, feathers falling from its body and the string falling from its mouth. The Uchiha then looked back at Naruto, who had miraculously healed from all of his wounds. He was no longer bleeding or having any other kind of pain. It then went black for Obito, and he fell over, dead. His body is going away just like before. When he showed up, he was confused about what had just happened and couldn't figure it out. Naruto warned, never cut the thread. His eternal Mangekyo Sharingan was full of fire. The thread that held us together was the bird, which stood for our lives. This Kamiyo was probably Naruto's most confusing jutsu. It only works when both opponents have taken a lot of damage, like Naruto's beating and Obito's many deaths. It would not have worked on the train because Obito had hardly any damage at all. And the person who cuts the thread is responsible for the sin. Neither shinobi would be hurt by the other, and any pain they went through would be returned to the person who cut the thread or killed the bird. Killing the bird meant death, but cutting the strings would only mean they would be hurt by the other. It was a clever little trick, and the person who was hurt was healed because they were not guilty of sin. Some jutsu are very picky and only happen once a week. If neither cuts the thread nor kills the bird, the small animal will tie the strings together, and the person who hurts the other first will have to deal with the consequences. After Naruto opened the Tanbogiri and got some of his strength back, Obito got his body back and prepared his gunbai. The two of them then met in a clash of sparks, this time without the limits of their jutsu. They cut and stabbed, swung and cleaved, but none of their attacks got through. The blows sent flying sparks everywhere, and Obito's gunbai was taking the most damage. Each block and attack broke up the wood, making it more fragile. In the end, they fought, and their faces were just inches apart. You deserve your power. I've never met anyone as smart and strong as you. I'm actually quite jealous of you. But only one can win today. Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu, Fire Release, Grat Fireball Technique. Obito threw a huge ball of flame at Naruto that was 3 times his own size. Naruto yelled, Raiden, Raikoho, Lightning Release, Thunder Roar Seer. He held out his only hand as a strong lightning bolt cut through the flames and hit Obito's gunbai, which he had raised to defend himself. Over the course of a few minutes, they traded jutsu after jutsu, but neither could hurt the other. In fact, the Ash defended Naruto more than once. But something wasn't right, and Obito could feel it. They kept trading blows with perfect accuracy, never gaining or losing. It was too late for him to realize that this was all a trick. He was trapped in a genjutsu and couldn't get out of it before the Tanbogiri stabbed him multiple times, the illusion keeping him from realizing that he had been killed again. Just like before, when the Izanagi turned on, it erased what had happened and made him normal again. When Obito came back to life, he said, "You must think I'm a fool." Naruto laughed at him under his mask. "You think your clever little tricks will have any effect on me?" Naruto said, "They're having effect on you." The pride in his eyes showed how he felt. When Obito got angry, he charged at Naruto. The Uzumaki didn't seem to care and threw the Tanbogiri right past Obito's head, missing him completely. The Uchiha laughed this off and kept charging at Naruto with the gunbai aimed at the blonde's head. The younger shinobi let out a single chant just as the wood was about to hit. "Trina, fine white hair," Naruto said while making a seal in his hand. Suddenly, the Tanbogiri pierced Obito from behind. Naruto had a special space time jutsu that let him bring things or people back to himself. Once more, Obito faded away, and the Tanbogiri fell to the ground. Naruto picked it up, and the blood on the blade was gone. Naruto blocked another attack from the gunbai. Obito's swings and offense got crazier and less organized, but Naruto was able to predict every single blow without any trouble. If they fought for power again, this time with more force and effort, so much so that each swing and block made a cloud of dust grow. Naruto yelled, "Garasutan, Hashira Shizuka Raijin, Glass Release, Pillars of Silent Beauty." And glass pillars appeared, standing tall and proud like towers on the floating rock. Obito had to use his Kamui to absorb some of the pillars so he wouldn't get hit by them. The Uchiha had lost sight of his prey in all the noise and had to avoid the pillars. He was now sliding across the glass to find him. He didn't have to look far to find the answer. As he looked into Naruto's blood, red eyes, he blocked a Tanbogiri attack from above, breaking through one of the horizontal pillars in the process. He couldn't do anything because the Tanbogiri was covered in black flames that went all the way around it. "Enten, Kagutsuchi!" Naruto yelled as the flames exploded and spread outward, even up into the sky. The pillars were easily destroyed, and pieces of glass were flying everywhere and breaking when they hit the stone ground. Unfortunately for Obito, a small plume stuck to his cloak and quickly spread through his body. He disappeared completely, just like before, as the ebony fire quickly ate him up. Naruto was quickly getting annoyed by how many Izanagi Obito had at his disposal, but he thought he had about 4 more left, which would give him 4 more chances to get it right. Coming roaring from the broken glass was his opponent, who gave up being invisible to kill the blonde. As Naruto said, Kami-yo-no-yo, Shinto, way of the gods. He reached out his hand, but an orange portal sucked it up. Another, bigger portal appeared at his opponent's side, grabbing Obito by the arm, and 3 more appeared out of nowhere and tore the Uchiha apart, killing him again. He could see that he was losing hope and was willing to risk his life for one attack, like an animal that is about to die of hunger. When Naruto's body broke apart, he sent all of the Amaterasu's flames into the sky. The fires flew through the clouds and made the sky darker. It was almost time, he just needed it. He got a small part of what he wanted when Obito showed up again with his gunbai hanging loosely in his hand. As Naruto swung his Warfan at Obito's head, the blonde easily blocked it with the Tonbogiri. Obito, enough, you can't win. These words hit Obito to the core. The Uchiha clenched his teeth and kept slamming his fist into the ground to show how frustrated he was that he couldn't beat the blonde. As he hit his head against the stone of the floating mountains, he broke the rest of his mask. Naruto looked on in sorrow. Then Naruto threw the rest of the black flames up into the sky, where they quickly formed something. As Obito slammed the hard stone with the tip of his Warfan, he screamed, "No! I won't lose!" Fires shot out from the impact point. He yelled, "Uchiha Kenjin!" and surprised Naruto by surrounding Obito with a wall of blood. Red flames. Then, out of nowhere, an explosion went off to try and kill Naruto. It was so strong that it blew away the many rock formations floating in the sky, and Naruto only managed to stay alive by hiding behind one of the big pieces. He only thought about how this jutsu was starting to improve and expand on what he had already made as he watched the winds pick up and swirl above him, the trees on the edges of their battlefield being torn apart, and many animals and birds running away. What was left of Obito's Doden Jutsu quickly fell to the ground when the battle was over. Naruto emerged from some of the debris and looked up at the sky, where a huge hurricane was starting to form. He still needed some more time, just a little longer. He looked around with his red eyes in the rubble, being careful not to trip over any loose stones or uneven ground. He went back and found Obito in the same place. His robes were torn, and he was staring up at the hurricane that was starting to form above him. As Naruto slowly got closer, they were in the middle of the storm, out of harm's way from the strong winds. Obito yelled, "Why won't you die? Why can't you just roll over and accept your fate?" While Naruto looked at him with sympathy. "Because, I have someone worth fighting for." "Love? You think there is such a thing in this world? This world has taken everything from me. It took the one thing I cherished, the one thing you have now. Love, I loved someone, just like you do now. But she was taken away, never to return. How can you stand there and say I was wrong? How dare you stand there feeling sorry for me like you do now? You don't even deserve the luxury," yelled Obito as he charged the 2 trading brooms. "You have someone who loves you, but I don't. She would stand with you and protect you from your pain. While the love of my life cared for someone else. And she was nowhere to be found afterward. Can you say the things you say now after what I did?" The Uchiha swung the Warfan downward over his head, intending to sever Naruto's skull, but the Uzumaki blocked the blow with such force that the gunbai broke into many hard, sharp pieces. As soon as he hit the hard ground, he was dead. As Naruto watched him disappear, he took a quick look up at the sky and saw lightning arcing in the hurricane's winds. He could feel the storm's sheer power and majesty. It ripped the land apart, pulling trees out by their roots, and the mountains shook and fell apart under its power. He felt Obito's presence again, but this time the Uchiha's back was to him. That's when he saw it, rows of Sharingan peering through Obito's torn robes and unnatural eyelids. That's where he kept them all, that was his secret. Naruto couldn't hold back his sadness. What started out as a fight to the death had turned into something more. Through the blows they traded and the wounds they got, Obito's desire to die was clear. Still, his strong desire to see his loved one succeed drove him to go, even though it was against nature's rules. He couldn't help but think about how they were alike and yet so different as he watched the shaky survivor. As he asked, "How can you have these things? Why can't I?" Naruto had already heard enough and was getting ready with his jutsu. Also, the next attack was more out of kindness than anything else, he thought. He let out a breath that sheathed the Tonbogiri and raised his left hand to look up at the hurricane. His Sharingan eyes looked at the natural disaster. If this jutsu, this thing that formed overhead, could be measured, he would say it was SS rank jutsu, if such a thing existed. If he were being honest, though, it was probably an SSS rank jutsu. This move can destroy Konoha 3 times over. It is the strongest jutsu I have, and it's probably the strongest jutsu in the world. I have the power of a god at my fingertips, Dragon God, Naruto said as he sent a burst of chakra into the storm. Soon, the hurricane was coming down to earth. As it did, it twisted, contorted, and changed its shape several times. Strong gusts of wind whipped its tail around. The strong winds helped Naruto stand up. His one hand swirled with wind, making him look almost like a prophet. Soon, the hurricane turned into an Asian dragon. Its body was made up of nothing but clouds and breeze, and its eyes were as bright as rubies. Its roar was like thunder. As Naruto lowered his hand to lead Ryujin out, he said, "The preparations for this technique are acute. I can only use it once because the conditions to use it will be depleted, but it will destroy everything you see, as far as you can see. So, Obito, disappear with the cry of heaven." With a loud roar, the great dragon slammed into the ground, right on top of Obito, and the Uchiha could only remember its jaws surrounding him. There was a tense wait as the energy started to spread out before the effect happened, but when it did, it was so strong that it could make the whole world shake with fear. A violent burst of wind, moving faster than lightning, tore everything in sight apart, like an atomic bomb going off, destroying anything even close to the impact point as a great dome of sharp gales and gusts tore everything in its path. Nothing was safe from its attack, not trees, birds, or even the small animals that lived underground. The winds ripped through the land like sharp blades, destroying everything in their path and swallowing everything whole. There was so much pressure that it broke bones. A big part of the Land of Fire's map was erased, leaving behind only a damaged gray basin that looked like the land had been cut with a butter knife. Was it too much? Sure, some people might say that, but Naruto thought that he would do anything to protect the person he loved. And as quickly as it came into view, it was gone, leaving a crater 3 times the size of Konoha. Naruto landed on the ground, well out of the wind, and the hard ground sent chills up his spine. He looked up and saw that the sky was a soft blue. He thought that Obito's technique was so strong that not even Izanagi could beat it because he couldn't sense it. He put his hands over his eyes and looked up at the sky. The sun was shining by itself, and there wasn't a cloud in sight. Even though there was so much destruction around him, it was almost peaceful. The world was cruel, but it was also beautiful. This thought was dashed when the Uchiha disappeared right in front of him. He was shaking all over and sweat was running down his forehead. That's crazy, Naruto thought. He was sure that his opponent was only alive because he was so stubborn. It was almost crazy to try to survive such a terrible end of the world. Obito yelled, "No. I'm not letting it end like this. I will see her again." He slammed his hands together to make the snake seal and focused a huge amount of chakra into them. When the ground started to shake again, Naruto gasped and fell to the ground. He managed to get himself on his knees as the ground cracked under his feet and a big, scary shadow blocked the sun, making everything inside its shadow dark. The Uzumaki leaned his head over his shoulder and then turned his whole body to face the monster in front of him. It was at least as big as a small mountain, and Naruto was scared of it because of its size. Mokuton. Shin Suyakuju, wood release, true several hundred hands. Obito yelled as the huge machine looked down at Naruto like a hunter looking down its prey. The version of it he fought against when he was fighting Hashirama was bigger, but this one wasn't even close. It was still huge and could easily wipe out an entire army if it got the chance. Naruto's eyes got very big as he heard this because he knew what it meant. "Now I will take her from you. Just as she was taken from me. Keep her out of this. You promised me she wouldn't be hurt." Naruto reminded his enemy, but he didn't care. It was clear that he had pushed Obito too far, and now her life was in danger. He had come here to protect her, and he was going to protect her even more. But he couldn't hide his anger at Obito's words, which broke his promise and made threats against her. This was not okay with him. With the chakra I have left, I can only keep it up for 5 minutes. And even then, I couldn't do it for long. He thought to himself, I just have enough time. Then he put all of his chakra into his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, which made it work as his personal guardian, soldier, and perfect extension of himself. Susanoo. He screamed as white flames covered him, turning him into a huge pillar of pale light that blinded Obito. He had to cover his eyes to avoid seeing what was happening. It was replaced by a titanic structure about the same size as the wooden god. It wore samurai armor over a robe, and its helmet had a long, straight, pointed nose, holes on the sides of its cheeks, sharp teeth, and a spiked chin. There was a pentagon in the middle of its forehead, with Naruto in the middle. Right below the pentagon were 4 curved spikes that stuck up like a crown. It had 2 long, fiery hairstyles on each side of its face, held up high, and 2 huge arms on its back, each holding a Nodashi sword. Overall, it looked very strangely like a demon, and Obito was scared just by looking at it. The huge Susanoo raised one of its extra arms and took a blade out of its sheath with so much force that it could cut a mountain in half. When Obito sent his guardian's arms flying forward, they locked the huge warrior in place while it groaned in defiance. It easily tore apart the wooden arms with its free hand and cut through the rest with its Nodashi. When it got to the ground, it saw even bigger hands start to grow. It swung its sword in an arc, cutting all the hands in half with ease and making a strong wind that would have knocked weaker men off their feet. As Obito's Buddha figure moved forward, the Uchiha had to swing its many arms at Naruto's Susanoo, ready to beat that armor into submission. Instead, it ducked under the swing and cut off a big piece of the wooden figure, sending large clouds of dust into the air as the arms hit the ground. The warrior was then hit, knocked down, and forced to its knees while holding its huge sword in both hands. He told himself, "I need to end this quickly." He knew he couldn't keep up the Susanoo for long. Even with all his chakra, 5 minutes was the most he could do. Besides the Susanoo and that jutsu, he didn't have any other jutsus that could beat that monster. That he would use this jutsu, which was one of the strongest in history, for the first time in a very long time. He couldn't believe it for a second. The warrior picked up a huge amount of chakra with its free hand while its Nodashi stayed in the other hand. Obito did nothing but watch, interested in what Naruto was going to do. He felt like he had felt this way before, as he saw the chakra appear in front of his eyes. It held a huge Rasengan, which was Naruto's father Minado's jutsu. It was about a third of its size. As the Uchiha knew, if that jutsu made contact, even his strongest weapon would fail. He couldn't let that happen, because if it did, he would give up right now. The Buddha put up one hand and threw out a bunch of sharp wooden springs that were easy for the Susanoo to cut through. "Kamiyo-no-yo, Suteppo no Shinigami!" yelled Naruto as the ghost warrior vanished from Obito's view and reappeared right behind Uchiha and his wooden monster, ready to cut the idol in half with its sword. But it never got the chance. The figure hit the Susanoo hard, sending it skidding across the ground and quickly turning back into its skeletal form before disappearing completely. Obito thought he had won, but he didn't notice that the Mega Rasengan wasn't in sight. It wasn't until he turned his head backwards that he saw Naruto flying at him with a huge ball of spiraling energy in his hand, smashing it into the Titan before it could do anything. Naruto yelled, "Rasengan!" as the statue fell apart completely because of the Rasengan's power. The chakra that had become hardened was grinding into the wood, breaking it into 1,000,000 or even 1,000,000,000 pieces. It was so strong that it even shredded Obito into blood and paste. He was reduced to a smear as the Rasengan slammed into the state, punching a huge hole through it and breaking through the edges of the Great Basin before exploding into a huge beam of light. Naruto landed hard on the ground, but from that height and because he was so strong, he would be okay. The impact made spiderweb like cracks in the ground everywhere, and every cell in his body hurt and screamed at him. He was in so much pain from using so much chakra and the Susanoo that he almost couldn't walk. Even though it hurt, he was able to get to his feet with the help of his one arm. He looked at the whole landscape. Instead of the beautiful green field of tall grass, there was a flat gray continental basin. Nothing of its original beauty was left. He even destroyed the forests and mountains nearby. But he let out a sigh of relief as he looked up and let the sun's rays kiss his face. He had won, it was over. As he turned on his heel to leave, the sound of dirt kicking up caught his attention, and he quickly turned around, only to have a kunai stab him in the right eye, sending blood shooting out of the wound. Even though he didn't feel the pain right away, it was unbearable as he screamed in pain and grabbed his heavily bleeding socket. Through the left eye he saw Obito holding the bloody kunai. Obito was sweating profusely, and his legs were shaking and he was heavily breathing. As the Uchiha stared at his opponent with half-closed eyes, the Uzumaki quickly guessed that it must have been very hard for Obito to even stand, let alone walk. The Uchiha charged forward as fast as he could, but Naruto kicked him away with all the strength he still had. The attack knocked Obito to the ground, where he coughed. Naruto took a deep breath and pursed his lips together to prepare himself. He then plunged his fingers into the remains of his right eye and pulled out the pieces and other flesh that were stuck in its socket. As hints of black and red leaked out through the broken orb, pulling the flesh from its strings. "What does it look like I need a right eye, Obito?" Naruto asked, opening his right eyelid to show the black and red space inside it and talking like he was a ghost. As white flames came to life around Naruto, his Susanoo came to life again, and Obito clenched his teeth and shook like a leaf. That being said, this wasn't the whole warrior we had seen before. It was just the bones and nothing else. The master and his guardian took cautious steps forward. Naruto felt pain as he reached forward with the arm he still had. Each step brought him closer to his enemy. When Obito saw this, he pulled out a string of explosive tags and threw them at the warrior. They didn't do much damage because the warrior was protecting Naruto in its ribs. The older shinobi then jumped into the air and swung the kunai hard at the ghostly figure. The kunai broke when it hit the ghost, and the skeleton hit him with the back of its hand as punishment. Naruto was getting closer and closer, and Obito screamed, "No! No! Stay back!" as blood leaked from Naruto's shoulder and stained the ground beneath his feet. When Obito looked at him, he no longer saw a man or a boy. Instead, he saw the shell of a beast that was determined to take what was his. The tips of Naruto's fingers touched his socket, making him short of breath. He fell to his knees and stared into the face of hatred. In the middle of Obito's screams of pain as his eye was being ripped out, Naruto didn't smirk, laugh, or sneer. He just listened. The blood was flying around like paint being flicked around. He held on to his empty socket as Naruto pushed the orb into it. It felt like acid was burning in his socket. After quickly turning blue, the eye changed to the red color of a normal copy wheel eye. It then changed to 3 stretched triangles evenly spaced around the pupil that curved at the top to make a pinwheel shape, Obito's pattern. But then something else happened. The Sharingan started to change into a completely new shape. It looked like a 3-pointed shuriken, with 2 spikes sticking out from the sides of each circle that went around the pupil. When Naruto's and Obito's Mangekyo come together, Naruto took out the Tanbogiri and said, "Thank you. Your reward is a reunion with your loved one." Obito stared at him with his left eye and slouched to the ground, his breath catching. In a last-ditch effort to reach Naruto, Obito grabbed his leg, which surprised the blonde, but it didn't bother him in any other way. His only words were, "I will see you burn before I die." As his left arm started to crack and split like molten armor, Obito focused an unimaginable amount of chakra into it. If he couldn't kill Naruto, he was content to take him to the same place he was going. The voice of Obito said, "Kaden, Ito Kaso, fire release, single blade cremation." Naruto screamed in denial as a katana-shaped wave of blood-red fire rose into the sky. The fire was so hot that it could be felt from miles away, and the air around the flames burned with an unholy fervor. It burned parts of the basin they were standing in, and the sky turned blood red and black as the flames burned. It went on for a few minutes, and when it was over, Obito's body was gone, leaving only ash and dust behind. Naruto was also nowhere to be seen. The sudden hurricane had caused a lot of damage in Konoha. It came out of nowhere and went away as quickly as it came. After the hurricane, there were strong winds that could uproot trees and earth shaking like an earthquake. The Godem Hokage, Tsunade, was in her office watching her villagers quickly clean up the mess as they ran around. When she heard a knock on the door, she perked up. Someone came in without permission, but Tsunade knew who it was because the tapping of a cane and the sudden drop in temperature in the room both pointed to the same person. "My Lady Hokage, you..." he began, but his Hokage cut him off as she turned to face him. "I know, the hurricane, the earth shaking, the heat rising, these are no natural disasters. My agents have found the center of this disaster. If you don't mind, I'd like to leave the village and find out where these problems are coming from," Danzo said. Tsunade couldn't help but narrow her eyes at this. Danzo seemed strangely interested in something like this. She only nodded and said, "Danz. These people got where they were going in about an hour, but they did it." Even though they were emotionless, the root agents were shocked by how much damage they saw. They said it was worse than the battle with Hashirama and Madara. Danzo knew this wasn't true because the fights between those two gods had destroyed a whole country. The Valley of the End was just a small scar compared to that. Still, even the old war. Hawk knew that the big basin they were in was scary and unsettling. He was scared just thinking about how this power could be used against the village. As one of the agents turned to leave, "We should go, Danzo." Sama. Even the old veteran was turning on his heel when something fell from the sky and pierced the ground in front of him. It was a black and red blade that stood there like a mountain, unharmed by the strong winds. The shinobi no Yami narrowed the one eye that could be seen and watched as someone picked up the sword and pulled it out of the ground. He could feel the glare crawling across his skin as the person who was always getting in the way stood there without moving. "It's too bad that Obito didn't kill you. He sealed his own fate when he challenged you. Is it too much to ask that you just give up and die?" Danzo asked as Naruto glared at him with hateful Sharingan eyes. He wasn't as strong as he was an hour ago, though. One piece of armor on his chest had been completely burned off, and several pieces of armor on his arm were missing. He had scratches, bleeds, bruises, burns, and deep wounds all over his body, and blood was still pouring out of them right now. "I don't know how you survived at Okaso, single-blade cremation, but I know that the Susanoo would have protected you. But it looks like it only stopped the worst of the damage. Even without the Sharingan, I can see that you can barely stand. Your chakra is so low that even the most basic ninjutsu would be hard for you to do. Do you really plan to kill me in this state?" Naruto didn't say anything, he just listened to the old man talk. Naruto yelled as he swung the Tanbogiri, black flames dancing off its length and tip. "Just shut up. I've already had enough of Obito. I doubt I would want to listen to you." He then swung his sword in an arc and charged at Danzo. It was when the old man grabbed him by the hand that caught him off guard. The force of the grip put out the flames and pinned Naruto to the ground, breaking it. The blonde didn't want to admit it, but his enemy was right. He was too weak and low on chakra. His body was screaming in pain, and it was hard for him to even stand in front of him. He used all of his chakra to fade the Sharingan from his eyes and focus a Rasengan into his hand. He aimed it at Danzo's face, but the older shinobi blocked it and stabbed Naruto in the neck with a kunai. A lot of blood poured out of the wound. The Warhawk slowly raised his hidden right arm and clenched his fist, saying, "I must thank you, Naruto, your cells. They are wondrous, so much strength. Power. Fortitude. Ultimately you were too weak to face me at this time, perhaps when you were to your full strength you may have proved more than a match for me. But as it stands, you must die here, forgotten, never to see the light again. And let this show how far beneath me you are." Continued Danzo as Naruto clawed at the kunai, choking on his own blood. "I always planned to kill one of you. It was just a matter of seeing who would be the last one standing. I knew it would always be you, I would expect nothing less. Goodbye," the old man said as he walked away with his root by his side as Naruto slowly and painfully clung to the last few threads of his life. His body was still, and his hand was flopped to the side. The light in his eyes went out, and his muscles relaxed. But some things should never happen in the world. Naruto's dead body stayed where it was for hours, with the kunai still in his neck. But, like Obito's body before, his body faded into nothingness. There was no sign that he had ever been there. The kunai in his neck fell to the ground with no blood on it. A pair of legs stood over the kunai, casting a shadow over it. A pair of blue eyes stared at it before slowly leaving this battle. Scarred ground. He picked up the Tanbogiri and held it in his hand as he set out for unknown places with a single goal in mind. The basin was his grave, and the kunai was his gravestone.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.